So in this video I'm going to start by telling a story of my experience going to a gig. This was about 2-3 years ago. So I was a student at the time in Manchester University, and I wanted to go see a band called Molchadoma, who are kind of like a sort of post-punk bands, and they were playing in London. And it was quite rare that they would play in the UK because they're from Belarus. This is just before the Ukraine war, but it was still quite rare that they'd play in the UK specifically. So obviously it was very exciting, very rare opportunity that I had to go and see them. So anyway, I thought, let's go and see them. So I booked a train to London, and it was the kind of thing where no one I knew really liked that kind of music. So I really wanted to go because there was such a big influence on me. So I got on a train and went down to London, and the gig ended at must have ended about midnight or something like that. And I thought a bit about how I would sort of spend the night, and I decided it would be too sort of excessive to get a hotel for the night. I thought I didn't want to spend too much money, right? So I decided to get just a train right back up to Manchester that evening. And I had a look on Trainline, which is like, if you're from the UK, you'll know it's like this kind of website where you book trains. And I saw that, there was actually a train going up to Manchester from London today. Great. So I booked a train from London to Manchester that evening. I left at about 1:00, so I had to get to the station in time for that, but apart from that was okay. So went down that evening, saw the gig, and it was a great memory. I did have some great memories of it. And then I walked to the station, and I got on this train back to Manchester that was going from London to Manchester. And it was only when I realised, when I got on the train, or I think I checked on my phone, it was the only thing that I realised that this train wasn't going direct to Manchester. It basically, what these apps do, like Trainline, is they'll sell you a ticket to somewhere, but it'll have in the kind of small writing that it's very easy to ignore that it's gonna be two trains. So you're buying a ticket from one destination, but there are two trains that are gonna get you there, and your ticket covers both trains. Fair enough. But this train was one finishing very late at night and one starting very early in the morning. And what I had to do was get a train from London to a place called Northampton, which is not a very nice place, and then stay at Northampton station for 3 hours or something ridiculous like that till about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. So it's not even really nighttime at that point, and then get another train back to the UK, back to Manchester. And I was like, fuck, okay. And I anyway got on this train to Northampton, got off, and it was I just felt horrific. I was so tired. Obviously I hadn't slept. You can't. I really struggle to sleep on trains. I feel like it's very difficult to do. So yeah, anyway, I was just in this. I arrived at this station, and I was just like, well, what am I going to do for 3 hours? Guess I'm just going to try and go to sleep. So I sort of lie down on the floor like a homeless person, with my bag sort of as a pillow, and just try to go to sleep. And there was another guy with me, I think was doing a similar thing, And I just sort of lay there, and then someone tapped me on my shoulder all of a sudden, and I turned over, and it was this guy who must have been about 20, 21, just looking at me, and I was like, "Oh, you alright?" And he was like, "Yeah, yeah, fine, mate. Your phone's hanging out of your pocket." And my phone was in like my back pocket while I was sleeping, and I was like, "Oh fuck," I could have fallen out. I was like, "Oh, cheers, mate, thanks." I was like, "Oh, no worries, man, no worries. So, what are you doing?" And he started having a conversation with me in this empty train station at like 3 o'clock in the morning. Um, and it quite swiftly transpired this guy was like homeless or whatever. Um, he was like looking for people to give him money. Um, and I just thought like, what have I got myself into here? And I couldn't give him any money. I turned him away. And eventually the train came and I got on it. I just arrived back in Manchester, just no sleep, just hadn't slept at all. And I'd spent this whole evening at this train station in Northampton, which like if you know the UK, like Northampton, it's not a nice place. It's a bit rough. Um, but at least I didn't spend money on a hotel, And I come back to this story time and time again because I think it exemplifies a massive sort of attitude that particularly English people or particularly British people have about money. I do notice this a lot, like white English people particularly, there's this kind of scarcity mindset about money where we will go to like enormous lengths to not spend money on something that we should, but then to spend money on certain things that aren't that good, like alcohol, like going out and drinking alcohol. That's kind of the big one. Certainly was the big one for me. That's kind of fine. We had this idea of a kind of a bargain. Everything is about trying to get a bargain. A bargain's like something cheap that's quite good. And shops just make so much money, have so much influence over this idea of like, oh, that was a bargain, this is a bargain, But this kind of philosophy ignores like a fundamental truth that is, if you want something of high quality or you want to do something properly, you're going to have to spend money. And I just think back to that example, like, yeah, fair enough, it was in London. Probably would have been 100, 200 quid to get a hotel. But at the end of the day, could I have just about afforded that? Yeah, I probably could have. Would I have liked to spend that much money on a hotel? Probably not. But I could have probably forked out 100 quid to find a cheap hotel. Treated myself, 200 quid. It wouldn't have bankrupted me. And what I've realised is that's often how you've got to think about things, Now, I'm not saying be just ruthless with your money and just spend, loads of money on stuff you don't need, excessively. I'm not saying that, but just like, to take that example, if you're going somewhere and you're going to be there overnight, you're going to have to, you can't just sleep on the street like a fucking homeless person. You need to find somewhere to stay. Now, okay, you could save money staying around friends or family members, something like that. Fair enough. Exhaust those options first. But if you can't, you don't have a choice. Like, you gotta stay somewhere safe and where you can sleep. Because, like, okay, well, here's another thing. How do you think my productivity was the next day? Do you think I had a really nice day where I got lots done and had a really fulfilling time when I got back to Manchester that day? Probably not, right? Probably I just went straight to bed and fell asleep. And it's like I'm kind of paying for that, you know. I'm paying for not spending that money on a hotel straight up by other ways. Like, it doesn't really help. You're not really solving anything. And I think the way I look at it is you're gonna spend money on something one way or another. You know, the only thing you really have a choice over is what you spend your money on. Now, some people are like neurotic savers, like they do just save lots and lots of money to no avail. I think a lot of people they will spend their money on something. And I think when it comes to saving money, you've got to think of it from that place of like, I'm saving this money for something, you know. With that example of me just getting a train straight back up to Manchester, you know, I was saving 100, 200 quid, but what was I saving the money for? Nothing came to mind that I was saving my money for. You know, obviously it's nice to have an extra 200 quid, but unless you've got an idea of what you're going to spend that money on, it's pointless. It's pointless, because you're just going to spend it on something, on your vices. You know, I can guarantee you that 200 quid that I could have spent on a hotel getting a good night's sleep and frankly making a nice experience out of going to see a gig. Instead I just spent on going out, getting drunk, which is fine. You know, like, you can do that. I'm not saying it's bad necessarily, but you know, was that the best way for me to spend that money? Just to go and spend it in some shitty club in Manchester, in a night that I wouldn't really enjoy or remember. You know, that's rather sad, right? That's rather sad that I had that. I went through all that pain, all that sort of suffering of denying myself a night of sleep, hanging around in some dodgy railway station for 3 or 4 hours, you know. And what did I spend it on? That money on that I earned from that suffering, just nothing worthwhile, nothing that I had any intention behind. You know, I'm not saying this would be a good way to earn money, but let's say I needed £200 to spend on like a course, like I wanted to improve my my business acumen, and I wanted to spend money on an online course that taught me that, or I wanted to learn a language and I wanted to spend money on an online course that taught me the language, you know, and it cost 200 quid. And there was no other way, like that 200 quid had to go towards that. Then, you know, maybe then it would be a good idea to sacrifice that sort of comfort of going to a hotel and just sit on the fucking railway station for 3-4 hours. But you know, without that, I just think it's a complete disaster of an idea. And I just see myself in the past like making those decisions so much, you know. Like, I do it with foods a lot as well. You know, I do think what you eat has just an enormous impact on how you function, how you enjoy life, and how productive you are. And I don't know, I always just feel buying a meal deal, you know, buying a sandwich from a supermarket, you know, yeah, it's cheap, great, but how do you feel after you've eaten that? You know, I just speak for myself, but I just feel horrific after eating a meal deal. Like, I went through a period of just eating them all the time because I worked at this sales company, and you know, none of us were making very much money, and every day we'd go to the Tesco before we went to work, and we'd have a sandwich, you know, have a sort of protein bar, you know, and some shitty juice that's just full of sugar. And how I remember like eating these sandwiches and I just feel shit afterwards, and I have to go and work. And it's like, yeah, it's cheap, But how much money was I really making after I filled my body with that kind of shit? You know, because I was paid all in commission, and it just didn't bring my best self to the table. And I think it's excessive to buy nice food when you're out, you know, and you should try and just save money, but save money by cooking food and bringing it to work, you know, which is what I started doing because I just thought it was so ridiculous. I can't keep eating this crap all the time. You know, like often what I'd do is I'll just bulk buy loads of Aldi, so chicken, and I'd just batch cook it and take that to work, literally just like a chicken and maybe some vegetables or some rice. And I'll just eat that, and like, in a sense, well, I guess Aldi is quite cheap, but in a sense that was more excessive, but it felt better, you know. And now at the moment, like another example, I'm just experimenting with my diet a lot, and I'm trying to eat less carbs, so I'm just trying to have these meals where I pretty much just eat like meats and vegetables. Obviously this is slightly more expensive because you have to, you know, carbohydrates are very cheap, meat's more expensive. And I was in the shop recently, and I just bought like a sort of pack of mince, which is just basically all I ate for lunch that day. It was just some mince with some vegetables, and I was like, okay. I looked at how much it was, and it was like £3.50, and I was like, that's as much as a meal deal. And that was such a weird, so dynamic shift. And yeah, the reason why I'm making this video today, just to round this up, is because I'm in Oxford at the moment. I'm going to move to Oxford. I'm looking for jobs, you know, and I had to stay the night because I've got a job, but I was looking for like housing. So I looked at some houses last night, have some houses today to look at, and I thought about what should I do for staying the night. And you know, I'm not gonna lie, the same kind of things came to mind. You know, I thought about driving back to London and staying at my parents' place. I thought about just finding somewhere quiet, like outside of Oxford, and sleeping in my car. I thought about staying at a youth hostel, you know, like a youth hostel where they have like, you get one bunk bed and lots of other people in the room as well. But then I thought, no, like I just suddenly like demanded a better standard of myself. I was like, no, I don't deserve, like, can I literally just about afford a hotel? I looked at my bank account and I was like, yeah, okay, like I'm not in a position where I'd like to spend 140 quid just to have a good night's sleep, but that's the reality. I was like, okay then, just get a hotel. And that's where I am now. I just ended up staying in a Premier Inn. And it's been great because I've been able to sleep, get myself refreshed, wake up this morning and do something productive before I go and look at these houses. You know, I mean, it's not that early now, it's about 9 o'clock, but I've been able to sit down and make some videos. You know, and I feel I've got good attention. I'm going to go around these houses today, and I'm actually going to be able to take in what people are telling to me. I wouldn't be able to do that if I decided, I'm just going to sleep in my car somewhere, or I'm going to try and drive back and just spend the night somewhere, but then I'm only going to get so many hours sleep, so I'm going to have to drive all the way back. You know, I'm going to sleep in some youth hostel and, you know, with some really dingy pillow. Like, I just went travelling, and, you know, I ended up sleeping in a youth hostel, you know, and yeah, like just in a dingy sort of bed, and someone snoring next to you, and every now and again someone turns the light on, and, you know, at some point along the line I just thought, no, I deserve to treat myself better. And again, I'm not saying just be absolutely stupid with your money, you know, go and stay in a 5-star hotel because you deserve the best. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying you're gonna spend the money on something, you know. And if you're gonna save the money, just know what better thing you're going to spend it on that's going to be worth, to take this example, that's going to be worth like effectively losing a night of sleep. And if you can't think of anything better and you can afford it, just do it. I mean, if you can't afford it, then don't, you know what I mean? Like, don't bankrupt yourself. But otherwise, I think when you start treating yourself like this, you start thinking in a very different way, you know. That's another thing I'll say, and I was trying this up. How do you think I felt about myself? How much respect do you think I have for myself when I was lying there in Northampton Station with a bag as my pillow on some dirty floor, trying to sleep before my train comes? You know, like, okay, like, it's a nice experience, it's a fun experience, you know, it's a funny story, it's character building, you know, all that's true. But the point still remains that, you know, I didn't have a very high opinion of myself to do that. You know, and having a good opinion of yourself is very important. What sort of opinion of yourself do you think, of myself, do you think I had deciding to spend money on like a nice place to sleep tonight? Probably quite high, right? So I probably feel have a little bit more pride in myself because I've taken that effort to put myself in a good environment where I'm gonna be comfortable and happy and give my body the chance to repair itself. So, you know, that might not apply to everyone, but I think a lot of why we want to save so much in the UK, I mean, if you're from the UK, like, you will know this, like, there's this real thing about just sort of showing off how much money you save. Like, I'd have friends who just went like, oh, you know, you ask someone something and they'll always say how little it cost. It was like, oh, this was only £10, you know. I think a lot of it comes from this idea, this kind of Protestant work ethic that, like, we don't deserve to spend money on ourselves, you know. So anyway, guys, thanks very much for watching. Just before I go, actually, one thing I want to say is, if you enjoyed the vlogs that I did in this video, the kind of travel vlogs, obviously most of my content is kind of like this, but I have done about 10 travel vlogs where I go to like a different country and I sort of film it and I put it on YouTube, kind of like sort of Bold and Bankrupt, if you know that YouTuber, if you know who that is. And I've done these kind of intermittently while I've been doing these videos. The first videos on the channel were just videos of me going around Kosovo, vlogging that. And I recently went to, as I said, I went to Moldova. That's where I stayed in a youth hostel there. And so yeah, I've got all these videos that occasionally pop up on this channel, and I've decided that I'm gonna switch them to another YouTube channel. The reason being, I remember doing a bit of research before I went to Moldova, where I was looking at other people who had done vlogs in Moldova, and I watched this one guy who did a video in Moldova, and to be honest, it was pretty crap. I thought, yeah, like, fair enough, you know, he's decided to go to Moldova, he spent money, you know, he's taking pride in what he's doing. But I think I can do better than this. I think I can make a better video about Moldova. And then I looked at how many views he had, and it was like, it was at least 10k. And I looked at his subscribers, and it was like 100k or something like that. And I looked at his comments, just full of comments. I looked at my most successful video of travel vlogging, and it was like 600 views. You know, it's all right, but it's. I slightly thought, like, yeah, here we go again. It comes full circle. I should demand a higher standard of myself. You know, like, these videos that I'm making, you know, they're not the best travel vlogs ever, but they should at least be getting as much as that, you know, as this guy. So anyway, one thing I decided to do is like double down a bit more seriously and put it in a separate channel where the algorithm kind of works in its favour and stuff, and it makes a bit more sense, because it doesn't really make sense for me to make these kind of wholesome self-improvement videos, and then every now and again I just put out a video of me in Moldova. Like, it doesn't really make sense. So yeah, so all moved to that channel now. The channel is called Yes Man, which is what this channel used to be called. But from now on, this is going to be more like a personal blog. But if you are interested in that kind of content, maybe if you subscribed for that reason, or you've occasionally seen them and you've actually found them quite interesting, go check them out. I'll put the link for the channel in the description. And yeah, apart from that, guys, thanks very much.